Day 2 of the Decentralized Intelligence Hackathon. We have Fabian here from KYVE Network to talk about how to build on the KYVE stack and using what does trustless data even mean. So I know a bunch of people have been asking about this in the Discord. You're hyped for this. So I won't take up too much of your time, Fabian, if you just want to introduce yourself, and then let's get right into it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for having me. Excited that people kind of really want to learn more about it. So, yeah, I'm Fabian. I am the co-founder of KYVE Network. We started around 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Um, and yeah, we're building a trustless decentralized data lake. If you guys are wondering what that means, you can get to know more of it here. Gonna keep the workshop pretty easy, like a Q&A walkthrough session, because KYVE, it's quite a complex thing, and so I'm gonna walk you through to get you guys just started a little faster. In case you have any questions, just ping me in the chat. I'll just make sure that I can see it here. Cool. And yeah, just don't feel free to reach out if you have any questions all the time. I think we have a bunch of time for that workshop. And yeah, maybe let's kick it off. So what was the idea of KYVE, and how did we get started? It got started because we were building on top of Arweave, and there was a bounty for archiving data from Polkadot onto Arweave, and John and I were really kind of keen on doing that. And once we built that, we got a lot of interest from all the other chains to do it for them as well. And we were like, well, if we only do the archiving, imagine we have a bug in our code, or imagine I don't know, someone's manipulating the someone is manipulating the data. What actually then happens if someone loads a backup? This can be super 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 tricky. So yeah, well, we started building KYVE, and essentially I think this graphic right here summarizes perfectly. What it does is we have all your data sources coming in here. KYVE is permanently storing and archiving them on a storage backend, and then also makes them accessible into modern day data warehouses or databases using our ELT pipeline. But yeah, more on that in the next couple of minutes. So yeah, if you want to get started with KYVE, check out kyve.network. It's going to be the landing page. You'll see all you needed. All you need here. It walks a little bit through the idea and the concept. Especially interesting might be for you guys, the ecosystem pages and the product pages. It's kind of to learn a little bit more about everything. The documentation is definitely the most in-depth way to get started. I can really recommend you guys checking out the Data Engineers Web3 Devs kind of section. If during the hackathon you need to run your own validator, which you might need to do later on, also some great docs here for KYVE tools. We have Ksync and Supervisor. We'll also go over them in a couple of minutes and remind me if I might forget that. In case there are any questions you want to ask, there's a cool Ask AI button in the lower corner here. It uses ChatGPT, and it has all the it has kind of all our docs, the academy, and everything around KYVE ingested. And you can ask any question, for example, what is actually the difference between the consensus nodes and the protocol nodes? And then send it off. And in a couple of seconds, you will get your answer to that. Usually even better than I can even give them. And we all know ChatGPT, we all love it, and it's really good. So yeah, this thing is free to use. Just feel free to put in any questions, and in case it can answer them, feel free to reach out to the team. We're always there. I think someone is just, I'm always looking with one eye to the chat. Someone's saying AI is going to take my job. I think AI is going to take all of our jobs. Unfortunately, it's getting scarily good. And things, even with sources and things like that. So yeah, feel free to check that out if you have any questions. Other than that, there's also another thing in the chat I just saw regarding the docs for the JavaScript SDK. This is actually true. I think you find it in KYVE.js here, and then on GitHub. And then on GitHub, it is kinda documented. If you then go into like the SDK part, it kind of like walks you through like how you can get started here. What we're doing is we are mimicking the queries you find on chain. If you're familiar with working with Cosmos queries, you kind of like see how that works. But again, there, if you have questions, let us know. We're always there to answer it. So yeah, how do you interact with KYVE? Kind of like three main ways. One thing is you build your own like thing on top of KYVE using the SDK. The other thing is you build your own like data ingestion thing, which is building a pool. And the third part is actually just accessing the data, which is where you can use data engineers and then accessing data either or REST API that allows you just to query the chain for like all valid data bundles, and you can build your own way of like how you actually download them and work with them. The other way, which is much cooler in my opinion, but feel free to use whatever you want. So ELT pipeline. If you guys are unfamiliar with what ELT means extract, load, and transform. So basically, it extracts the data from KYVE, loads it into your data warehouse, and you can do all the transformation on your client machine. So there's ELT and ETL. We use ELT, which is easier to work with. A couple of cool tutorials here. One is like a Postgres tutorial on how you can set it up and get your data into a Postgres database. One here for Snowflake, if you guys want to like get out the heavy machines and like do some crazy data insights, feel free to do it there. You can either host Airbyte on your local machine using Docker, straightforward, or if you don't want to host it, head over to airbyte.com, click on try for free, sign up, and then you can see the Airbyte interface. I'm going to very quickly walk you through how it works. It's pretty easy. Airbyte has the concept of a source and a destination. Source is KYVE. Destination is your database. And then you have a connection from your data source to your database. I'm going to show you how that works. On sources, click on new sources. Wait until Airbyte loads. There you go. I think by default, the community thing is disabled. If you type in KYVE, it says one matching, connectors hidden by filters. Click on show hidden results, and then you can see KYVE here. There was one question in the chat, which is, can we take one step back, quickly walk over the use cases of KYVE? I'm slightly confused with the terminology. What is Airbyte? I'm totally sorry. We can, of course, take a quick step back on that. So what do you use KYVE for? KYVE is used for when you're working with a stream of data, like blockchain data, for example, and you want to work with it in like a decentralized way. So what is the core problem with this, right? Imagine you're working with pricing data and you ingest the pricing data of CoinMarketCap, but actually CoinMarketCap would be like giving you wrong results because the computation is off or anything like that. And then you would suddenly ingest an incorrect price feed. Let's assume you're building an AMM, then suddenly your AMM has like wrong data and you're like completely screwed, right? Because everything you build is decentralized, and then you have like suddenly one unvalidated stream of data coming in, and then your whole system breaks, right? We've seen this with like, all of the top crypto hacks basically have worked this way, and so yeah, this is kind of like the basic idea of working with KYVE data. Is like, how do we make sure to work with KYVE data to work with data that is validated? So maybe stepping back from there, on KYVE, we then have certain like data sources available. We call them pools. If you head over to app.kyve.network, the session is going to be recorded. If you head over to the App KYVE network thing, you will see your pools page here, and these are all the current data pools available right now. So we have the data from Osmosis, we have the data from the Cosmos Hub, Archway, and Excella. You can see here the indexing progress. Archway we have fully archived, Cosmos we have fully archived, Osmo we are on the way there. And then just click on the pool to get more information. Let's say you want to see the Osmosis data. You have a little overview here. Don't worry, it looks more complicated than it is. We will dive into this in a couple of seconds. And then you can also see the data being uploaded here. So how do you access the data? And now tying back to Airbyte. Airbyte is this tool that allows you to access the KYVE data. And so as a source, you want to select KYVE. You would select the pool ID you want to work with. For example, let's say you want to work with osmosis. Would put in pool ID 1, bundle start 0 if you want to start with the first data you want to index. Click on setup source. And then but it's automatically testing it and making sure it works. There's also a README on the right on like how you can set it up correctly. And then if you create a connection to a destination, you can select up, for example, our BigQuery instance. And then it also checks that it can ingest the data from KYVE into BigQuery. You can give it a name if you want to. You can select the replication frequency. I like to use manual. I don't need the data to be updated every hour, but you can. So let's say just every hour. And then for the sync mode, there is full refresh, which means every time it syncs, it deletes all the old data and completely gets in all the fresh data. Doesn't make much sense for crypto use cases. So click on incremental append to only get the latest data into your data warehouse. Click on setup connection, and then automatically the data will be moved from KYVE into your like local database, and then you can work with the data however you are used to it. I do see a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to walk through them very quickly. So first question was, if we have archived all the data on the chain, what does this actually mean? If osmosis is a DEX, does it mean that you can fetch all the trades and transactions? This is correct. So basically what we are storing is the block and the transaction data. And then by using ELT and other things, you can basically then query for all transactions. So for example, if you go to info.osmosis.zone, you can see here that all the data you get from here is osmosis data, but of course not queried from the blockchain itself, because that would be impossible to query it at that speed and to even get this insight into the data. So what the team over at Imperator is doing is they have a separate database instance, like a traditional Web2 database, where they get all the osmosis data into, and then they serve it as if you would have a traditional web application. And so if you see those tools, those are built basically using like an ELT pipeline, like KYVE gives you. Dune Analytics is a second example there. They actually directly expose the database interface. There is a second question here. Am I right in thinking it's kind of like the graph or more like Dune Analytics big data? That is also absolutely correct. So what KYVE is, it's actually even an underlying piece in the puzzle. So actually the graph is one of our investors as well, because what they need is, how do we get the data from the blockchains into our databases where we can use GraphQL and other things on top of. And this is where KYVE comes into play, basically allowing them to fetch the data in a decentralized way, getting it into the databases and then serving it. Because the problem they have right now is that every node, for example, in the graph is doing this on their own. And actually, it's just imagine like they're ingesting data and the endpoint goes down and suddenly they have like a data gap. So it means there's no data for a certain point in time. And then they just can't deliver it, right? Or data has been tampered with, it's modified, they give you wrong results. There are a couple of articles about there that data, like wrong data is actually way more common than we do think it is. Even on KYVE, we had this problem on the osmosis pool, where some nodes were running a different version and it was actually producing different data. And thankfully, KYVE caught it, and we were able to have all nodes be updated to the same version to avoid like wrong data being uploaded. And I'm happy to link it later. Crossnest, one of our validators, did an amazing thread on that, like kind of just showing like what happened on KYVE and why KYVE prevented like this data breach, so to say, from happening. Quick break here. To just gather my thoughts. Another question or like another comment from someone who uses Setablock. Super cool. This is in decentralized way because Setablock occasionally crashes and doesn't respond to my API calls. This is exactly the problem KYVE is solving, right? It's decentralized, meaning you can use it. Data access is free because we're using Arweave to store the data on. So you guys can go wild on the applications you build on top of it. Alrighty, got a little bit sidetracked here with the osmosis data in Airbyte. So maybe let's kind of like jump into the app and kind of like walk you guys through that. So how do we actually now ensure that the data that you guys are requesting is valid and has not been tampered with? It's pretty easy. So we have those data pools where we have validators running in those pools. So if you go to a pool, you can see an overview here. You can see the bundles. The bundles is what we call with like data. So you can see here new data is getting uploaded. And then if you click on the validators tab, you can see all those people being active in the pool right now. And based on their stake, they are chosen to be the next validator. And so Crossless, for example, out of every bundle has a 21% chance he's going to be the next uploader for that piece of data and getting the most money. Think of it exactly like if you would be on a blockchain being the one that is the one that processes the block next. So then if we click on a bundle here, maybe these bundle details, you can see here, then the nodes vote on this data. So in this case, it was IBS. IBS downloaded data from Osmosis, submitted it to KYVE, and then the other nodes were basically then voting on that if the data was valid or invalid or abstain. So abstain means that they don't know if they were right or wrong. They usually vote as if, for example, the API endpoint they were fetching was incorrect, if they don't have the data, and so then basically nothing happens. If more of the 50% of the bundle is valid, we do keep a record of it, and KYVE says, yep, this piece of data is valid and it's safe to use. If more than 50% is invalid, KYVE discards it and says, guys, don't use this data. There's like something wrong with it. If more than 50% is abstain, we just drop it, meaning we don't do anything with it because we don't really know what it did. So basically, the pool just stops at that height, tries it again, until either someone steps in and fixes it, or until the issue resolves because, for example, the endpoint is back up and running. I can even show you what it looks like if the data is invalid. Does this happen on Osmosis? Here we had the problem where someone tried to upload invalid data because the node he was running was incorrect, like incorrectly configured. And so the data that he uploaded was not what all the other nodes wanted to see. So they voted invalid, and the pool validator here received a slash, meaning it lost parts of the stake. And if we quickly go back to the validator here, you can see they all have KYVE staked, and if they upload incorrect data, they get slashed. It's the same as if you work on a proof of stake network. If you like commit a block incorrectly, you get slashed. And if you guys want to use KYVE and you want to like delegate some tokens, you can also click on the validators, select one, delegate, and then you can just like delegate your tokens. And there's quite a good APY on it right now. The APY is paid out by users funding a pool. If a pool runs out of funding, meaning there's no money behind it, it still runs, but no one really wants to spend money on not getting any money for it. So usually then the nodes would leave the pool and the pool would pause. And so here basically you can see there's funding in the pool that actually then pays out the nodes. There's another question in the chat, which is that is KYVE a Cosmos chain itself? So yes. Additionally to everything you see here, KYVE is also its own blockchain. You can see this if you go to MintScan and go to KYVE. There you go. We are our own blockchain, or actually even better explorer I like is ViewBlock. KYVE gives you just a bit more insights. It's built by a partner project of us. Click on statistics and you can kind of like see what is going on. We have around 100, well, yesterday, first time we ever hit 100,000 transactions a day going on. This is usually all the data being uploaded and being voted on and other things. So the way it works is the nodes, actually, the ones that you see here. Oops, I lost my mouse. There you go. The nodes that you see here, they are interacting with the blockchain to just make sure that the data they are working with is correct, and they're committing it to the blockchain. And then also when you read the data, you're actually reading it from the blockchain and from the underlying storage provider. All right. Are there any questions maybe so far? If not, I will just keep going with other things about KYVE. Yes. Oh no, was unrelated to this workshop. Let's see. All right, nothing too crazy yet. If this was way too much information for you, which I bet it was, for because it's KYVE, it's a lot. What you do, head over to kyve.academy. And what you will see here is basically a little summary of everything I walked through in this workshop. It starts out with like very easy courses, like KYVE fundamentals, what KYVE is about, and even covers like some off-topic, like non-KYVE related blockchain topics, like for example, like understanding crypto, or for example, like what is a DEX, and other things like this. But especially KYVE courses are interesting for you guys to get started. There are some use cases here from other companies we work with, like how they use KYVE and why they use KYVE and why it's so important for them. Like Logstore is a very cool example. What they do is they store decentralized machine logs using KYVE and then running analytics on that. There's also a cool tutorial which I can recommend you guys checking out as a little milestone, the Hackathon, which is visualizing the NFT data on EVM chains using KYVE. Takes around like it says 4 hours here. I'm pretty sure you guys can be a little faster on that. But basically, what it does, it walks you through the full KYVE story again, the full KYVE step, and is a one-on-one tutorial on how you can see how much NFT activity is actually happening on EVM chains. Totally for free, all in your own computer without having to use any external tools, like a Dune or something like this. And it's fully validated. You exactly know what you get. Okay, perfect. There's another question here, which basically is how do I actually upload data onto KYVE? There, you head into the docs. I lost my own thing. There you go. And then click to for data engineers, adding data to KYVE. And then there is an example here. So what we do is we do have an integration template. And what happens is you just check that out and you can see the way it works. It's pretty easy. You need to write 2 functions. One function is how do we upload data? Like how do we fetch the data? And the second function is how do we validate it? How do we validate it? And then it's packed into a runtime. Actually, we just check it out on GitHub and I'll walk you guys through the code. So this runtime right here would be the Tendermint runtime. It's just one JavaScript file. Sorry, there it is. Basically, that has this get data item method. This is the crucial one. Basically, it's where you define how your node fetches the data. So in this case, what happens is the node fetches the block at a certain height from an API, and then checks the block's results for it as well. It's like a Tendermint custom thing, and then returns it, key value, that is. And then basically, this is all you need to write on your side. KYVE takes care of like how it actually uploads it, how it like makes it available on chain. Nothing to worry about you from that, from a developer side of things. And the other function you need is your validate data item function, where basically, it's actually even just this part. It's basically you do get the data that lives on chain that get uploaded and your own data, and then you just need to define, well, how is data valid? Here would simply be, well, is the uploaded data the same as my downloaded data? And if yes, perfect, you automatically vote true, and you also don't have to worry about how that works. The docs are a bit more in-depth about it, and it's pretty easy to get started. Again, if you have questions, reach out to us. We will answer everything there. You can also go to our GitHub, and there is a template somewhere for it. Is it here? Yes, there you go. Developing your own runtime is where you can see like how it exactly works and the functions you have to execute. And then in the end, you go to our testnet, Corelia, which is here, app click here, Corelia. Now you're on our DevNet. You don't need to buy any tokens. There is a faucet. You can just claim some tokens there. And you can just get started right away. You can see we have way more pools here, way more data available. And then, yeah, you can play around there, deploy it. If you have questions, reach out to the team, and we will make sure to get them answered. And yeah, get started on this. Let's see if there are any other questions. Is it necessary to have blockchain data that is being uploaded? No, not at all. You can upload any kind of data. It doesn't matter what it is. We use blockchain data, but because we are in the blockchain space and it's hard to access it. But you can store Web2 data. You can store any kind of any data. So it's really up to you what kind of data you upload. It's pretty straightforward. Another question is what kind of area on the docs to focus on? Actually, this is a good point because the developing your own runtime should be like in the data engineer section. So we might move that around. But yeah, actually, basically, I think for you guys, what is interesting is the data engineers, protocol devs, and Web3 devs might be the three most interesting parts to cover as they kind of like overlapping on how KYVE works. And the academy, the visualizing NFT data course I can really recommend. Then I think you know everything you need to know about KYVE. All right, I think that's so far everything from my side. I'm gonna wait like the last 3 minutes for questions and then answer them. One question that came in was some ideas and inspirations for what I think people could build. Couple of things you could build. One thing is actually something that archives a Web2 pricing API. Like for example, there's no integration yet that would store like the CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap data. It's actually a pretty big use case, and well, because it's just impossible to analyze historically CoinMarketCap data. That's one cool use case. You can use any kind of other like we have some ideas for like sports betting data that might be interesting to store. Another thing I'm pretty big on for the alpha is actually you can choose to store data somewhere differently than Arweave, and you can actually build your own rollup that is taking the data and actually storing it on a different blockchain. So for storage provider, you can build a storage provider, for example, Ethereum, that would store the data KYVE has been validating on Ethereum. So you can have a fully decentralized sequencer with this. Yeah, this would be, I think, some couple of cool ideas there. Yeah, the gas cost might be very heavy on the Ethereum one, but if you only store the data you need, I think it actually can stay reasonable, but you might want to check if that's like a really good idea or just something that I came up with. There was one question I actually missed, which is, do we need to have KYVE tokens to do this, or is there a testnet equivalent version? We have a testnet you can use. One is called Corelia. It's like our hacky testnet. Feel free to break it and do everything. You don't need a token for this. The other one is Kaon. It's the more sophisticated testnet. You can switch around here. Mainnet, testnet, devnet. On Kaon, there's also a faucet down here to get some tokens. And yeah, you don't need any tokens for mainnet, and you don't need any money to access the data. It's fully free, and that's it. Exactly, a decentralized dual analytics would be a pretty cool, I think, thing someone can build using the ELT pipeline. And yeah, I think you guys gonna get very creative on all the ways that you could do there. Also, like a decentralized osmosis zone dashboard could be pretty cool, and things like that will kind of get your creativity going, I think. Yes. There's a question, can you make a DEX on KYVE? I think would be curious how that could work. Feel free to like share your thoughts on that because we're more data driven. KYVE is available through DEX, through Osmosis. But if you want to like basically build like a client that's like managing the DEX and storing the data, that could actually work. Can we charge for access to the data we publish? Yes, you can do that. You can encrypt it and you can build a gateway on top of it where you could charge people for uploading data. That would be working. some more ideas here around like AI stuff for KYVE. Something that I really like there from like a tech perspective is also that the data is actually valid, and it's kind of like the counterpart to like synthetic AI data, right? Like all the data in the world is like getting more and more fake using AI, and so. Well, with KYVE, you know that you're actually learning on the true data and not on like any fake created data. So that's also like a pretty cool use case there. Yeah, best I think place for you guys is to hang out in our Discord. It's very technical, especially in like the lower like dev notes channels. I think there you will get all questions answered around that. We should have someone always around to answer any questions. The community is also very supportive of this, and also like as I said, the Ask AI button in the docs actually also gets a big bunch of questions answered for you guys. And yeah, I think that's it from my side. I'm still gonna be around for another minute or so in case there are any questions. But thank you so much for tuning in. That says he or she is still slightly confused. I can totally understand that. Check out the academy; it will get your mind sorted. It is a lot for KYVE to like go through in like 30 minutes. So yeah, take your time with this and have a good cup of coffee with it, I would say.
Amazing. Perfect. I think we had some good questions over there. Hopefully, guys, this gives you a good sort of starting point. But yeah, definitely check out KYVE Academy. There's a couple of minis and lessons we have on KYVE on Learn Web 3 as well. So go check that out. But definitely the Academy probably goes more in depth over there. So check that out and reach out in the KYVE Discord, reach out in the Learn Web 3 Discord, office hours, whatever, if you need any help at any point. But yeah, since we're at time, thank you, Fabian, for hosting. And I noticed Paul and Margot are here as well. So thank you guys as well for jumping in chat to answer some questions. And yeah, thank you everybody for attending. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what everybody builds. And that AI idea sounds really cool to me. I look
Right.
forward to seeing that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me and us. As Paul and Mark already said, you will see them around. Paul is your Kidido, however you say that on on Discord. But yeah, just feel free to ping us wherever. And actually, the mini on level 3. Now that you say it, it's actually I think this is like the best thing to get started. Even better than the academy because it's more condensed. And yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Perfect. Okay.